Many people think that our sole purpose is actually about creating big things, leave legacies, or achieve certain milestones. And we often follow what we think we should do, what we have to do to play in that game of life. So this is primarily hustle driven. So one is considered successful when earning an X amount of money or having that fancy car or that prestigious job, the big house, and all those things. And yet, for many, something is always still missing.
And in this past month, in the Life Surfers, past month and a half actually, we worked on and with the premise that we all have a very unique soul purpose, the reason why we're here. And that can be quite different to what society actually tells us that it needs to be. And so we guided our group of life surfers through what we call an excavation process, where they found their very unique own purpose. And we did this with group coaching sessions, meditations, and prompts, and all kinds of things, some of which we will share with you today. And we found out along the way that there's actually a huge difference between soul purpose and life purpose. And that's what we will be digging into with you today, as well as how to tell the difference between what it feels like to be soul led versus ego led. And if you're curious about that, stay tuned. So, welcome to our first recapturing episode that we've been planning to do for every module that we have created on the Life Surfer so far, but somehow we just never got around to it. And we're excited to be doing this today. And yeah, so it's about soul purpose. And we have come to the realization in this past month and a half that our soul purpose is actually that we're here to experience whatever is put in our path. And whether we see these things, these experiences as something good or bad, doesn't really matter. Our soul is here to experience the whole breadth of experiences. And our life purpose is actually what creates these experiences, the things that we do in order to feel, right?
Yeah, and you can also see your soul purpose more as the like overarching theme of your life. So that can be quite subtle and it's nuances that might not necessarily manifest in like all those tangible things that we talked about in the intro. So it might give you an achievement or sense of achievement anyways, even if it's not about the big things. It's more about the joy and the happiness of the life that we live to our own conditions. And if you are aligned with who you are truly here to be on this planet, so that's when everything will click and your life will start to flow with ease and it will start happening for you. And especially, of course, when your life purpose is also reflecting this and adding this and is like the expression of that soul purpose in this life. Like on the other hand though, like if you live a life that is not meant for you, that is more based on, for example, like living someone else's life, like the societal expectations or just someone telling you what they think life is all about, then you will ultimately find yourself wondering if there is more to this and you don't feel fulfilled because um, you really live your life from that thinking perspective. So, what is expected from you? So, that means that you're mostly led by your ego. And your ego naturally wants to keep you safe and in your comfort zone. And it has all those stories to tell you, right? That you also picked up along the way of all your life. And so the ego and with all its stories and all the background it comes with basically tries to keep you small, to keep you safe, and to keep you comfortable. So, and that, yeah, so that's what we're also getting into how to define or how to find out if something is soul versus ego led when we talk about this in a bit, because we have designed an experiment on this actually.
Mm-hmm. And what we also found out in this past month is that essentially it always all boils down to how regulated your nervous system is. Like, this is so basic. And even though, and maybe because you hear it everywhere, it seems like, at least we hear it everywhere at the moment, like it's everywhere: regulate your nervous system like this, like this, like that. And it almost seems trivial, but it's so essential, because when we're dysregulated, we automatically, like Sandra just said, we make choices out of fear, out of our ego, to stay small, to stay safe, right? And when we allow fear to be our guide, we will walk a path of constriction and lack, and that's just not our highest path of fulfillment and fun experiences, because that's small, that's tiny, right? And that's why regulating our nervous system is such a huge aspect of everything that we do, is such a basic of everything. And because when we are regulated, we're able to really connect in with our hearts, and to connect in with our highest path, and to be led by that. And essentially, ikigai is nothing but that, right? Ikigai is the Japanese um,
Philosophy,
yeah, philosophy. Thank you.
expression, or
Expression, yeah,
expression.
yeah. Of soul purpose, really. And what came through there is that it's really about, walking in and connecting with nature, having a healthy lifestyle, and resting, and really connecting with community, and living your passion. And when you do that, you are in alignment. Your nervous system is regulated, and you're able to connect to information and action steps that lead you on the higher path, and that creates synchronicities, and that just lead you so naturally into what is easy, right?
And so when it comes to this nervous system regulation, one of the very well-known examples is the Maslow's pyramid, where he basically says that your basic needs need to be met first so that you even have space to pursue a soul purpose, versus Victor Frankl, who was a Holocaust survivor that actually was a psychotherapist, and he came to observe that those people did best that already had the purpose, versus they did not have their needs met. So we kind of, when we introduced these to both contrasts, actually what came up for us is, first of all, that this pyramid that is suggested by Maslow is almost like it kind of aligns with our own chakra system. So not only the colors that he used, but also like this build up from the root, feel grounded first, and then come into the higher spheres of your soul, and your connection to the universe or source or whatever you want to call it. But our takeaway was basically that it can be both, or it has to be both, and it is both. So it's not just one bottom up control where your needs have to be met first, and it's also not necessarily about the top down, that you have to have your purpose first in order to regulate yourself, or to live that happy life. But it's about both. The important thing is that your inner needs need to be met first. And you can do that again by either grounding yourself, knowing where you belong, regulating that nervous system. And you can also do that by just connecting to that higher purpose first, and then grounding that way. So it's kind of what we came up with, actually, rather than a pyramid, it's more like an hourglass, where you can either, again, have that bottom up or that top down, and the sand basically drips down into the other half, and then you can switch it around, and then the sand will flow back, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's really not, again, always about our outer needs to be met first. It's really that inner balance, and again, like that regulated nervous system.
And what I loved about the hourglass also was that it's like the tight point would be the
Yeah,
heart chakra, right? And it's like it filters through what is really relevant and what's not. And it's like this is
absolutely.
the needle's eye that it goes through is your heart chakra. That you need to pass that to come to the
Hmm.
other side. I love that too. Yeah, and we would
Absolutely.
love to give you an experience of what happens inside the life surfers. And today's experience would be for us to share an experiment with you that we did in the last month. And this was actually inspired originally by Kelly Velasquez, who shared a Substack post where she asked herself whether, when she's procrastinating, whether she actually needs rest or if which it feels so relevant in today's world where we burn out so easily, we push ourselves so hard, so rest always seems like such a valid excuse to escape something that we're actually meant to do. So she tested out whether she needed rest or whether she needed to create some forward momentum instead. And we took that as a basis because that was brilliant already, and took it a step further because we believe that when we procrastinate, there are two actually polar opposite forces involved in creating the resistance that stops us from doing the task we want to do. And that is either soul resistance, our soul saying, this is not for you, or our ego saying, no, no, don't do that. Stay small, right? So, yeah, that was what the experiment was about. And yeah.
Yeah, and the ego can actually be quite sneaky. So when we look at this flowchart that we generated, and we will post that in the show notes here as well, is like your soul side of things will tell you if that something is really truly meant for you at all in its core, while your ego might just be unhappy in that very moment with some aspects of it, and it might be very very consistent and bringing like all these reasons up and all these fear based reasons why you shouldn't be doing this. But ultimately, if it's soul aligned, the ego, you need to find a way how to kind of shut the ego up.
or,
So
or or at least unmask it, right? To
to
say like
unmask, exact. Oh
this is
yes, the first point. Yes, the first point is always to unmask it, to call it out for what it is, and that's what the experiment is about, to like distinguish between the two. But yeah, if it's soul aligned, um, it's not in your highest good to abort the whole process, even though your ego might repeatedly come at you and say, "Okay, I'm persistent." So again,
don't do
that
this,
way it
don't do
can be
this, don't do this.
exactly very sneaky and persistent.
Mm.
But yeah, it's just the ego wanting to make you believe that it's not truly soul aligned. So yeah, there is this difference, right?
Yeah, but how do you know the difference, right?
Yeah.
What does it actually feel like in your body, and what are your personal symptoms and signs for you to know whether something is ego aligned or soul aligned, right? So we originally thought it is super easy. What lights us up versus what drains us, right? But we found the surprise. And so we created, as I mentioned, we created a flow chart, um, as well as a tracker that could help you move through these sessions where you just sit down for 15 minutes. If you're procrastinating on a task, you first do the flow chart and see where you land. And then you do the task for 15 minutes and see, does it give me momentum? What happens within me? And or am I really drained afterwards? Do I really need to take a nap or rest or go outside and ground or regulate my nervous system or whatever, right? And so this experiment is created essentially really to help you catch yourself and get to know your patterns, get to know your ego, how sneaky it is. I mean, it's so crazy. I'll share in a minute. Um, and how does your soul feel? Like what does it feel like when it's soul aligned, right? And so it's super super intriguing.
Yeah. And when I did this experiment for myself, actually, I was surprised by that persistency of my own ego, because I was really convinced that, okay, this is not soul aligned. I have to drop it at some point. And by really tuning in, using that chart, what we actually became obvious was that my ego was just really throwing these things at me because I needed to pivot. The whole topic was still soul aligned, but I approached it in a wrong way, and that wrong way, which is draining my energy. But by just pivoting a little bit and just approaching things in a different way, um, all the things that didn't light me up, that I thought was like really my soul resistance, they turned out to be ego resistance. And yeah, once I shifted those things and I stripped the expectations from how they had to be, it actually becomes like significantly more flowy.
Hmm. Yeah, and for me, it was very similar, and it was so hilarious because I even created this big post on school about how how I have this soul-induced narcolepsy when my soul is telling me that this task is not aligned and it doesn't light me up. I shouldn't be doing this. Oh my God, I'm blushing when I say and then I did this experiment, and what came through was actually that it was my ego making me tired because the task I was meant to do was seemed so boring. It seemed beneath me. Like I'm too intelligent to do this, right? But what came through was that it's part of the steps I had to move through. I was learning something through these boring tasks. And when I just surrendered to the task, when I gave it my full awareness and said, for 15 minutes, I'm going to sit here and do this, I became hyper productive. I did so much like I didn't do in 2 hours otherwise, right? Because I completely removed the resistance. And when I did that, it suddenly was fun and I could keep doing it. Like Sandra said, it was flowing, right? And it was just my ego saying, this is not for you, even though the end result it created was magnificent. And so what became obvious to me was that the little steps don't each have to light us up. At least not initially, they don't, right? But when we surrender to them, when we even, it can be even trivial things like doing the dishes or whatever we do with full awareness, all the chores, it can light us up, even if that seems like a paradox, but it does happen. So that that was a huge insight for me, and that's why I would love for you to do this experiment and play along and see what comes out for you, because you might be mind blown. I might
Yes,
blush
be
afterwards. I was so convinced.
I know. Yes, you can be expecting to be surprised. Like it's
Mm,
really worth it. But basically, an action step, what doesn't have to be big. Oftentimes, it's really just about one little step to gain that momentum, one little pivot. Even the awareness, going through this chart, for example, even the awareness, like, okay, this is soul versus ego resistance, this can be enough. It's mostly about finding that one domino block that you just push, and then it results in the chain reaction, and everything just and starts to flow. And obviously, there's also a component of really trusting and knowing that this will be working out,
yeah.
that it is, if it is truly aligned with your highest expression and your soul purpose. But again, it's not about like that long-term big goal perspective. It's taking one step at a time, and really even having to tune it in over and over will just give you those breadcrumbs that you can follow along for that
Yeah,
path.
and it's really like fine tuning, because the more
Yeah.
often you repeat this, the better you will get to know yourself and your sneaky ego, its tricks and all of that, and the more easy it will become to align with your soul and say, oh no, this is my soul, my soul is asking me to do this. And and it's not about right or wrong, or making mistakes or not, or any of that, but it's about learning, getting to know yourself, right? And being able to make those differentiated choices and becoming aware. And when you do that, it just gets so much easier.
Yeah. And so what became obvious to us, like being at the soul purpose, is that we really just each have our own path. And that might be very different from everyone else's path, everyone that around us, or even wants to make us believe that there is only one and only way. So oftentimes we're afraid to really follow our path. And one big thing, or one big step to be able to really follow it and trusting and knowing into this, is to love yourself unconditionally. To be confident in who you are and why you're doing the things your way. And that actually is what we'll be doing next.
Mm-hmm. So this whole content that we created on the soul purpose of each will be continuously available for another month, including our deep dives into the scientific backgrounds and human design aspects. We even included traditional Chinese medicine this time, and all the tools that we created to help you find your very personal, very unique soul purpose and life purpose will be available for another month before we take it out again. And so if you join now, you will have access to all of that. And then on April 13th, I believe is Monday, we start off with the new topic of self-love, as Sandra said. And this is just so hugely important and so basic and so challenging. And that's why we can hardly wait to start with it. And we would love to see you there. And until then, take care and see you soon. Bye.